Hey, Mike in Toronto, you're a new atheist with some questions for us, so welcome.
Hi, Mike.
How are you guys doing?
I hope better.
That was quite the call, the last one.
Yeah.
Well, we're not terribly new atheists. We've been atheists for a number of years. The thing is, my wife and I are very actively involved in animal rescue. We have a registered cat shelter for elderly cats.
Oh,
and that
cool.
sort of thing. Yeah, it is very cool. But then you see things like Australia, and over 1 billion animals died, and then all across Facebook you see people helping the poor kangaroo or the burnt koala and all that kind of thing, and it's nice to see humans doing that. But that's like that tiny sliver. You think about all those animals that are all suffering out there, and they just want their homes back, and they're singed, and they can't sleep, and all these kinds of things. And this kind of thing brings us to tears. It used to be a very comforting time at one point where you would have a prayer. You'd pray, and you'd feel better about the whole thing. I certainly don't ever want to go back to those days, but
Why would praying to the God who created a system where fires kill kangaroos?
Well, because it makes you feel better.
But
I can see something that you could replace that with. If it was prayer that helped you before, then I could see you replacing that with so death. You're sad that these animals are dying, and that hurts you, and pain can be extremely motivating. So maybe use that to see if you can do something to help, whether it's financially, or if you can go and help, or if you can raise awareness or raise money if you don't have it, or just use that,
Yeah.
Because that can make you feel pretty good too.
It brings you to tears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally to tears. Like we will cry sometimes when we see these things, right?
Crying's good too.
And I just don't know what the coping mechanism is for such a thing.
Well, first of all, crying releases endorphins. Crying itself releases endorphins and makes you feel better. That's just to start. That's actually really good for you. But then also using your emotion as a motivational object of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a feeling. I don't mean to waste you guys' time by calling in, because I didn't know what you could possibly say. But
what do they do?
What do you do to cope with something like that?
I do something. I say, what can I learn from this? And I figure it out. That's ever since I became an atheist. Anytime I'm in pain, I say, okay, this is life. Shit happens. What can I do about it?
Yeah, if that's kind of my first take is, yes, there are bad things that are going to happen. What things can I do about it? What things should I do about it? And how do I prioritize where I'm spending my efforts? Does it make me sad? So I was in Australia, and kangaroos are in most areas considered just a nuisance. And so, they were overpopulated and everything else. I went to a zoo and met and played with kangaroos. I saw some of them out and about, and I ate one for dinner. Now, that really pisses some people off, and I get that. And I understand that different people are going to have different perspectives on this. Does it mean that I'm not sad that there are animals? Of course I'm sad that there's animals dying. But I tend to try to take a practical approach of it, I'm far more concerned about the humans that are dying and suffering than I am the animals. But I'm never going to fault for somebody for doing like what you do. You're doing a cat rescue thing. If I were to go to you and say, why are you doing a cat rescue for elderly cats? Why aren't you helping elderly humans who are, that's just shitty, because people have different things that they're going to be passionate about and care about. I don't think you care any less for humans than you do cats just because you've decided to do this. And yet, curiously, people will, I actually, I have 2 cats that died before my wife left that are both buried out under the willow tree, and I have pictures that we painted of them. And I miss those cats, and I loved those cats. I loved the other cats we had. And in the examples that I was using earlier, where I put like a hypothetical baby and a hypothetical cricket underneath the tire of the car, and I pointed out that if you switched it to kittens, you're going to get different answers from people. For me, I'm still going to save the baby. But if somebody decided that they were going to be saving the kittens instead, in a sort of impulsive situation like that, I don't know what I would make of that. It's not like I'm going to say, oh, you're a terrible person necessarily, because now we set up a bullshit scenario where you have to make a snap decision in an instant. Maybe you're closer to one side of the car than the other. These sorts of moral dilemmas and thought intuition pumps, as Dan Dennett calls them, but to get these sort of trolley problem things, it's not about finding what the right answer is. It's about figuring out who we are individually and collectively. And so, yeah, your real question has nothing to do with any of the shit I just said about value. It has to do with,
but it's good. It's good.
how do I deal with something that is causing me pain, and I used to be able to turn to a God, and now I can't. And for me, that is something that I approach as a practical matter as well. Because in the past, when I was a kid and when I was a believer, what did I turn to God to? And much like the caller who wanted the guardian angel, Jenna's answer there of saying you build an actual network of guardian angels. And so you have other people. You and your wife should be, you guys are doing this rescue thing together. You are feeling the same emotions and same pain over this. The two of you just feeling and sharing that together may, as unfortunate as it sounds to some people, may be the best thing that you're going to have to begin to deal with this. Other people are going to cope with it in different ways. I don't feel any need to reach out in prayer because, first of all, the question that I asked earlier of why would it would not be comforting me to go to the God of the universe who created this shitty system that is doing shitty things and say, oh, please comfort me, because that wouldn't have worked for me. The fact that it did work for you means that you had a notion of a God that, was where these things weren't necessarily his fault or his doing, and that he might be just as sad about it as you are. And so instead of turning to a fictional God that might be just about as sad about as you are, you get to turn to your spouse, you get to turn to other people in the community, and you keep building the rescue that you're doing right now to do the most good you can without feeling bad that you weren't able to save everyone and everything all the time, because we all know is impossible.
Everyone and everything will die at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. What comes to mind,
except for
Matt,
Jenna.
Right.
She proved that.
Not me.
What comes to mind, Matt, is how when you give the analogy of supposing you've always been told all your life that when you turn 30 years old, you're going to inherit $1 billion.
Yeah.
You get to 30 and they say, just kidding. And that's kind of what it is. And when people say, I talk to some theists who are like, well, what, even if it's not true, what harm does it do with our children? Well, I got to tell you, it's a lot of harm. It would have been so much better to be born and raised knowing what reality is and dealing with it than to all your life feel that you have the blessed assurance and these animals that are suffering in Australia will be in heaven one day. And then to find out, oh, just kidding, this was all bullshit.
So you know what that did for
really
me?
Tough.
Because that basically happened to me. That experience that, oh, just kidding, this is all bullshit, basically happened to me in a moment. And that was extremely emotional for me, just like we were talking about earlier, using emotions, extremely emotional, that I had to do something, and that's what got me here.
Oh, that's cool.
That's the reason I'm here, is because I had that emotion.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm volunteering and trying to do everything I can to reverse this from happening to other people.
Totally.
So use it. That's like anytime somebody's suffering, how can you use it?
I think and you can take comfort in the fact that you are in fact genuinely compassionate and taking steps to try to make the world a better place in whatever way you can.
Tell yourself, I'm doing what I can, and that's all I can do.
I didn't cure cancer,
You guys are awesome.
but I saved a cat.
You're awesome too.
Thanks a lot for the call, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.